Over the past decade, relations between Turkiye and Serbia have grown into a strong partnership, going well beyond just trade. And that was on display during a meeting between Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Serbian counterpart Alexander Vucic in Ankara. High on their agenda was promoting stability in the Balkans. After signing multiple agreements covering education, trade and tourism, the two leaders stressed the need to de-escalate tensions in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The country has been rattled by Bosnian Serb leader Miodrag Dodik's threats to unravel a 1995 peace accord. Serbian President Vucic underlined his country's respect for Bosnia's integrity and supported President Erdogan's call to bring its multi-ethnic leaders together towards a solution. Turkey has offered to play a mediating role in Bosnia as it shares close relations with the country's tripartite presidency that comprises Bosniaks, Croats and Serbs. And to discuss that meeting and tensions in the Balkans, joining me now from Budapest is Zoltan Egeresi. He is a security analyst and research fellow at the Institute for Strategic and Defense Studies. And from Sarajevo, Ermin Zec. He is a political analyst who writes extensively on Bosnian politics. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Zoltan, what could you tell us about the timing of Serbian leader Vucic's visit to Turkey, which came at a time when political tensions in Bosnia escalated once again?
First of all, it was really timely travel to Ankara because concerning the Serbia situation, there was a referendum just prior to this meeting, and right now the Serbian domestic politics will be focused on electoral campaigns because there will be an election in early April in the country. So President Recep Tayyip Erdogan invited his counterpart in the right time in order to discuss the deteriorating situation in the neighboring Bosnia, where the Turkish interests are focusing on keep the country's integrity, and Serbia can play a really constructive role in order to handle the current situation.
So, Ermin, Turkish president, during his meeting with Vucic, urged all parties to act with a sense of responsibility and refrain from any steps that endanger Bosnia's integrity. And Turkey is ready to mediate between those parties. How is that going to play out?
First of all, very hard because the crisis in the Bosnia started when the former High Representative of the Valentin Inzko introduced the law which bans denying genocide. Yes. After that law, the Serb representatives left the state institutions. So the problem in Bosnia in general at the moment is the rule of law, respecting the law, and it's a very positive signal that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is mediating the negotiations between three countries, but it will be very hard to make any progress.
So what's your take on that, Zoltan? I mean, it would be, of course, a hard process, but how do these different groups view Turkey's mediation efforts? And are there any prospects for an all-out agreement moving forward?
The situation is really not easy, but as it was agreed in the Ankara meeting that after the elections in Serbia, probably there will be organized a new conference by inviting the Bosnian leaders, so from the leaders of the Croatian, Serbian and Bosniak communities in order to mend fences. And really important that Turkey and Serbia will also contribute and participate in this event. And there is some probability that the Croatian president will also join, and having this kind of international, I wouldn't say that pressure, but kind of mediation will a little bit de-escalate the current situation. And if it happens, I mean, this meeting happens before the 6 months period, which is a kind of provisional period for constitutional changes in the Serbian side legislation, it will be really useful to really de-escalate the current crisis.
I was wondering, because Vucic and Erdogan agreed on mediating these crisis talks, but they also agreed that these talks will take place after elections in Serbia in April. So, Ermin, I mean, wouldn't it be too late?
Yes, that's very good question, because the Serb member of the Bosnian presidency, has crossed several red lines. He have introduced the law which, into some sense, takes away of the state competencies and take it to the entity level.
Yes.
So April is in 5th month, and it will be very likely that the crisis, that Dodik will push the crisis more and escalate. So it will be, I can't say now it will be too late, but it can be. And it's interesting that these negotiations and is happening during the international isolation of the Dodik. We have seen the sanctions from the United States, and the European Union is planning some sanctions on that.
Yes, but Dodik, do you think those sanctions would work or push Dodik more towards Russia?
No, I don't think the sanctions will work. Why? Because they are not strong enough.
Yes.
They're blocking some traveling to the United States, blocking some economic interests, but it's Dodik and the Serb membership can find alternative economic methods in Russia, in Hungary, in Serbia.
Yes. So, Zoltan, what would the country look like if Bosnian Serbs withdrew from these institutions? What kind of ramifications it would have on the broader region?
Of course, it will lead a kind of political crisis by questioning an internationally imposed peaceful situation which exists, or it would existed in the last almost 30 years. And I think that that's why everyone, not just the international community from the EU or United States level, or I also can mention Turkey, but the other regional neighboring countries are also rather interested in keeping the country together and de-escalate the conflict and find some kind of modus vivendi which can be used by Milorad Dodik as a kind of victory in the current political situation without harming that much the constitutional integrity and system of the country. But yeah, it's a really tricky issue. But I'm sure that in the greater level, as we could see in the previous years, for example, during the non-paper crisis last spring, every politicians, I mean, every leader in the region were rather against any kind of modification of territorial issues and so on. So, and this is an important issue.
So, Ermin, what's the EU's approach towards this crisis? Is there a unified vision by the bloc, or has the West lost its interest in Bosnia-Herzegovina?
The West has lost its power in the Bosnia and Herzegovina. They simply don't have the same influence in the region they have, let's say, before 20 or 30 years. And because of that, another players in the region has taken the role. We have seen the rise of the Russia, the rise of the China, the rise of the Turkey in the region. And that's why I really can't see that West, European Union or United States have enough power to solve this crisis and problems.
So, Zoltan, how has Turkey's engagement in the Balkans over the last 2 decades evolved, and how do you think Turkey keeps the balance between among Bosnian leaders as well as other leaders, for example, of Hungary, Albania, and Serbia?
Okay, so Turkey during the last 2 decades managed to create really I would say a rather positive image concerning its activities in the Balkans. It managed to create really good relations with almost every Balkan country. And the most important, or the most striking point is the booming relations with Serbia, with which these ties were rather problematic during the 90s, for example, or early 2000s. But right now we can see a kind of historical peak in the bilateral relations. And also Turkey tried to establish itself in every case as a kind of good friend of various Balkan countries, like in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, if we talk about the integrity of the country, or like in the case of Kosovo, Turkey was one of the first countries countries which recognized the independence of Kosovo in 2008, and we can see something similar in pattern in case of North Macedonia, which country was always supported by Turkey during its naming dispute with Greece, and also Turkey demonstrated a huge amount of support concerning the countries joining the NATO. And we can talk about the same issues, I mentioned the same issues concerning Albania as well, which was just visited by Recep Tayyip Erdogan a couple of days ago. So Turkey, from this point of view, tried to play a really positive role in the Balkans by boosting the stability and increasing its economic penetration in the whole region.
Yes, I mean, you've just briefly mentioned, but can you expand on the Russian influence in Bosnia and the Balkans in general? Because we know that a few months ago, Russia got a very important concession from the UN that excludes a resolution with any reference to the Sarajevo-based office of the High Representatives. And some argue that that decision rendered the Dayton Agreement null. Would you agree?
Russia, what's the interest of Russia in the region? The main interest is to stop member states in the Western Balkans to join NATO and EU, so Euro-Atlantic integrations. In that role, Russia has played many games. It has strong influence, and it tried 5 years ago in Montenegro to change the government by coup. And in Bosnia, it has influence through Dodik, and through his commitment, Russia tries to stop the Euro-Atlantic and special integration into NATO membership.
Yes, so Zoltan, has the time come to update the Dayton Peace Agreement, which is blamed for Bosnia's dysfunction? And do you believe there's a common ground for that, or animosity among those parties run too deep?
It's really difficult, the situation, as we can see. So what we can right now see in Bosnia, it's not a novelty. So similar claims concerning referendum of independence on the Serbian side emerged 5-6 years ago as well. So it's without the international community's commitment to man defenses and solve this issue, I don't think that there will be any plausible outcome to overcome the current difficulties. And even if there is a genuine need to upgrade the whole system because it's not favoring the majority of the population, and it really harm the development, not just the political, but the economic development of the country, its EU prospects and so on, which is probably unquestioned in the long run. But still, the differences are too high and too strong to overcome.
All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me.